You attacked Earth. Part 5. The Silence. The Council homeworld was called Nexus Prime. It was the center of galactic civilization, a planet covered with magnificent cities and ancient monuments. Thousands of species had representatives there. Treaties had been signed there. Wars had been ended there. For 10,000 years, it had been a symbol of peace and cooperation. Today, it was surrounded by human warships. Captain Park Do-yoon stood on the bridge of the Aegis, looking at the planet through the main view screen. It was beautiful, he had to admit. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds drifting across the sky. It reminded him of Earth, which no longer existed because the rulers of this beautiful world had decided to destroy it. All ships in position, reported Cho Min-ho. Weapons charged. Shields at maximum. We are ready, Captain. Do-hyun nodded slowly. This was the moment he had been working toward for nearly 2 years. The moment when humanity would face the beings who had taken everything from them. His hands trembled slightly, but he forced them to be still. Open a channel. To the council chambers, he ordered. Channel open. Do-hyun took a deep breath and spoke. This is Captain Park Do-hyun of the human vessel. Aegis, I am addressing the Galactic Council. You have exactly 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. If you do not surrender, we will begin orbital bombardment of this planet. He paused to let the words sink in. You know what that looks like. You did it to Earth. Now you will experience it yourselves unless you comply with our demands. He ended the transmission and waited. The response came in 15 minutes. The council agreed to meet. Do-hyun took a shuttle down to the planet's surface with a small team. General Lee Sun-woo came with him, along with Kim Ji-woo, Baek Yuri, and 20 armed soldiers. Yoon-hana stayed on the Aegis, ready to coordinate medical support if something went wrong. Be careful, she had said before he left. Holding his hands in hers. I always am, he replied. No, you are not. But come back to me anyway. He kissed her forehead. I promise. The council chambers were enormous. The ceiling rose so high that clouds formed near the top. Thousands of seats filled the room, arranged in circles around a central platform. Representatives from hundreds of species sat watching as the human delegation entered. The room was completely silent. Do-hyun walked to the center platform and looked around at the faces staring down at him. Some showed fear. Some showed hatred. Some showed curiosity. Ambassador Vela of the Kryn sat in the front row, her expression unreadable. Drell of the Morvans gave Do-hyun a small nod of encouragement. You attacked Earth, Do-hyun said. His voice echoed through the chamber. Nobody responded. You killed 12 billion innocent people. You destroyed cities that had stood for thousands of years. You erased cultures, histories, families, dreams. He let the words hang in the air. And you did it for profit. For territory. Because you wanted what we had and you believed we were too weak to stop you. Still, silence. You were wrong. He pulled out a datapad and placed it on the podium in front of him. The screen displayed a document. These are our terms, he said. First, the Vec Empire will pay reparations to the survivors of Earth. The amount will be determined by an independent committee, but it will be significant. Second, all Vec military leaders who ordered or participated in the attack on Earth will stand trial for war crimes, including Admiral Turan, who has already surrendered to us. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several Vec representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Third, humanity will receive the 12 colony systems we have captured, plus an additional 5 systems currently controlled by the Vec. These will become human territory permanently. Fourth, Do-hyun paused and looked directly at Ambassador Vela. Humanity will receive a permanent seat on this council. We will have an equal vote in all decisions. We will never again be treated as second-class members of the galactic community. Vela's eyes narrowed. Those terms are extreme. The Vec will never agree to them. The Vec have already agreed, Doyen said. Admiral Turan signed the documents yesterday. The Vec Emperor ratified them this morning. The only question now is whether the Council will accept these terms, or whether we will be forced to continue this war. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted at each other, argued, pointed fingers. Dohyun waited calmly, his hands clasped behind his back. Beside him, Sunwoo kept one hand near his weapon, ready for any trouble. Ambassador Vela raised her hand for silence. Slowly, the noise faded. "You are asking us to humiliate one of our founding members," Vela said. "To give you territory that the Vec have held for thousands of years. To make you equal partners in a council you only joined 200 years ago. This is not justice. This is conquest." Dohyun shook his head. "No, conquest is what you did to Earth. What we are asking for is survival. We will not allow ourselves to be destroyed again. We will not trust our safety to others. We will protect ourselves, and we will have a voice in decisions that affect our future. And if we refuse..." Dohyun looked at her with cold eyes. "You know what happens if you refuse." The silence that followed was the heaviest Dohyun had ever experienced. It pressed down on him like a physical weight. He could feel every eye in the chamber focused on him. They were afraid of him. Afraid of humanity. Good. Fear was better than contempt. Trell stood up. "I vote in favor of accepting the human terms." Another representative stood. Then another. Then a dozen more. Species who had remained neutral during the war. Species who had secretly supported humanity. Species who simply wanted peace. They all stood. Vela watched them with growing dismay. She had underestimated humans. She had underestimated how much the galaxy had changed in 2 years. The council she knew, the council that had ruled without challenge for millennia, was dying. Something new was being born in its place. "It appears we have a majority," Vela said finally. Her voice was bitter but resigned. "The council accepts the human terms." Dohyun felt his legs go weak. He wanted to fall down, to scream, to cry. They had done it. They had actually done it. Humanity had survived. More than that, humanity had won. But he did not show any of this. Instead, he nodded once, his face calm and steady. "Wise choice," he said after the formal ceremony. Dohyun walked through the gardens outside the council chambers. They were filled with plants from hundreds of different worlds, a living museum of galactic diversity. He found a bench beneath a tree that looked almost like an oak and sat down. Sunwoo joined him after a few minutes. "We did it," the general said. "I still cannot believe we did it." "Neither can I," Dohyun admitted. "What happens now?" Dohyun thought about the question. What did happen now? They had won the war, but the work was just beginning. They needed to build new homes for 4 million survivors. They needed to establish governments, economies, militaries. They needed to find a way to move forward without forgetting what they had lost. "Now we start over," Dohyun said. "We build. We grow. We become something new. Do you think we can do it?" Dohyun looked up at the alien sky, so different from the sky he had known as a child on Earth. That sky was gone forever. That home would never return. But somewhere out there, among the stars, humanity would create new homes, new skies, new dreams. "Yes," he said. "I think we can." When he returned to the Aegis, Hana was waiting for him in the docking bay. She ran to him and threw her arms around his neck, holding him so tight he could barely breathe. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it." "We did it," he corrected her. "All of us, together." She pulled back and looked at his face. There were tears in her eyes, but she was smiling. "So what now, Captain? Where do we go from here?" Do-hyun took her hand and led her to the observation deck. They stood together, looking out at the stars. The same stars that had watched the destruction of Earth. The same stars that had witnessed humanity's darkest hour. Now they would watch humanity's rebirth. "Everywhere," Do-hyun said again, remembering his promise from months ago. "We go everywhere." Behind them, the crew of the Aegis celebrated. Music played, people laughed, tears flowed freely. The war was over. The future was uncertain but full of possibility. And somewhere in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, the representatives who had once dismissed humans as primitive and weak now sat in silence, thinking about what they had learned. Humanity was not like other species. They did not conquer for power. They did not kill for pleasure. They fought when they had to, with everything they had. And when they won, they offered mercy instead of vengeance. That was what made them dangerous. That was what made them special. That was what made them human. The galaxy would never forget. You attacked Earth. Part 4. The Reckoning. The galaxy was watching. 12 VEC systems had fallen to humanity in 6 months. It was the fastest conquest in galactic history. Species that had ignored the war now paid close attention. News channels broadcast stories about the human revenge across thousands of worlds. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. How were they doing it? Captain Park Do-hyun stood in the command center of the VEC colony world they had captured yesterday. It was a small planet called VEC Tertius, home to 2 million VEC civilians. The military forces had surrendered after a 3-day battle. Now Do-hyun had to decide what to do with them. General Lee Sun-woo wanted to keep pushing forward. "We should not stop here," he argued. "Every day we wait, the Council has more time to organize their defense. We need to strike now while they are still confused. And leave these civilians without food or medicine?" Do-hyun shook his head. "They are not soldiers. They did not attack Earth. Their government did. Yes, and we will punish their government. But not innocent people." This had been a constant argument between them. Sun-woo was a soldier. He understood war. He knew that mercy could be dangerous, that enemies left alive could become threats later. But Do-hyun refused to compromise. "If we become like them, we lose," Do-hyun said. "Maybe we win the war, but we lose ourselves. I will not let that happen." Sun-woo stared at him for a long moment. Then he sighed and nodded. "You are the captain. I follow your orders." "Thank you, old friend." They set up hospitals and food distribution centers for the VEC civilians. Yoon Hana led the medical teams, treating injured VEC alongside injured humans. At first, the VEC were terrified. They expected torture and death. When they received kindness instead, they did not know how to react. One VEC child approached Hana while she was treating patients. The child was small, with light blue skin and wide, frightened eyes. "Are you going to kill us?" The child asked. Hana knelt down to look at the child directly. "No," she said gently. "We are going to help you. That is what humans do." The child stared at her in confusion. "But we destroyed your world. We killed your people." "You did not do those things," Hana said. "Children are not responsible for what adults do. Go find your parents. Tell them they are safe." The child ran away, and Hana watched with sad eyes. How many VEC children had lost parents in this war? How many human children had lost everything? War created orphans on both sides. It created pain that lasted for generations. She understood why Do-hyun was fighting, but she hated what it cost. News of human mercy spread quickly. VEC civilians shared stories about the strange conquerors who healed their sick and fed their hungry. These stories reached other worlds, other species. They contradicted everything the Council had said about humans being primitive and dangerous. Dro, the Morven representative, watched the reports with great interest. He had always believed humans deserved better than what the Council had done to them. Now he saw proof that his belief was correct. They could have slaughtered everyone on Vecturtius, he said to Ambassador Vela during a council meeting. Instead, they provided humanitarian aid. Does that sound like the behavior of savages? Vela did not respond. She was too busy reading reports about Vec military losses. The numbers were getting worse every day. The captured Vec officers told investigators what the humans had done to them. They had been treated fairly, given food and water, allowed to send messages to their families. This was not normal. In galactic warfare, prisoners were usually tortured for information, then killed. The humans were playing by different rules. Admiral Turan refused to believe the reports. Lies, he said. Propaganda designed to weaken our resolve. The humans are animals. They probably ate the prisoners after the cameras stopped recording. But his officers exchanged uncertain glances. Some of them had family on Vecturtius. They had received messages saying everyone was safe. Why would humans protect enemy civilians if they were truly monsters? Bikuri solved another puzzle during this time. She discovered that the Vec military communicated through a central network that connected all their ships. If she could hack into that network, she could hear everything they were planning. It took her 2 weeks of sleepless nights, but she did it. I can access their communications, she reported to Doyen. I know where their fleets are stationed. I know their patrol routes. I know when Admiral Turan takes his meals and what he eats for breakfast. Doyen smiled. That last part might not be useful. You never know, Yuri said with a small shrug. Maybe we can poison his food. We do not poison people, Yuri. I know. I was joking. She paused. Mostly. The intercepted communications revealed something important. The Galactic Council had known that Earth was peaceful. They had known that humans posed no military threat. They had attacked anyway because they wanted human territory. Earth was located in a valuable region of space, rich in minerals and strategic locations. The Vec had simply decided to take it. Darian shared this information with the entire fleet. The broadcasts went out to every human ship, every survivor, every colony. They did not attack us because we were dangerous, he said. They attacked us because they wanted what we had. They murdered 12 billion people for profit. Remember that. Remember why we fight. The anger that followed was like a fire spreading through dry grass. Humans who had been uncertain about the war now demanded justice. Soldiers who had been tired found new energy. The war became more than revenge. It became a crusade for survival. Other species began to help. The Morvans sent supplies secretly, hiding them in cargo shipments that the Council did not monitor. A race called the Kelthan shared intelligence about Vec fleet movements. Even some Vec officers, disgusted by what their government had done, started providing information. Why are you helping us? Dongyun asked one such officer, a female Vec named Tara, who had surrendered her ship rather than fight. Because what we did was wrong, Tara said. I joined the military to protect my people, not to murder innocents. When I saw what happened to Earth, she looked away, shame visible on her face. I could not be part of that anymore. Dongyun studied her for a long moment. Then he held out his hand. Welcome to the right side, he said. Tara stared at his hand like it was a strange alien thing. Then, slowly, she took it. The final battle was coming. Everyone knew it. The human fleet had grown to over 300 ships, supported by vessels from allied species who had joined their cause. They were still outnumbered, but they had something more valuable than numbers. They had purpose. They had unity. They had the knowledge that they were fighting for something greater than themselves. 1 week before the attack on the Council homeworld, Admiral Turan finally surrendered his fleet. It happened without warning. One day his ships were preparing for battle. The next day, they powered down their weapons and sent a message to the Aegis. "I wish to negotiate," Turan said. His face looked tired and old. Nothing like the proud warrior who had ordered Earth's destruction. Dahyun agreed to meet him on neutral ground. They sat across from each other in a small room on a trading station. Two enemies face to face. "Why did you surrender?" Dahyun asked. Turan was silent for a long time. Then he spoke. "Because you are not what I expected," he said. "I thought humans were weak. I thought you would break under pressure, scatter like frightened prey. Instead, you became stronger. You united. You fought with honor, even when we showed you none." He shook his head slowly. "I destroyed your world, and you spared mine. I do not understand you." Dahyun leaned forward. "That is because you do not understand what makes us human. We fight hard because we have to, but we choose mercy because we want to. That choice is what separates us from monsters." Turan looked at him with something like respect. "What will you do now?" "We will go to the Council homeworld," Dahyun said. "We will demand justice, and we will make sure this never happens again. They will not surrender easily, I know." Dahyun stood up. "But they will surrender, one way or another." He left Turan sitting alone, a defeated admiral thinking about everything he had done wrong. You attacked Earth. Part 3. The response. The Vec moonbase never saw them coming. 47 human ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Their new shields glowed blue in the darkness of space. Their weapons were charged and ready. At the front of the fleet, the Aegis led the way with Captain Park Do-hyun standing on the bridge. "All ships, report status," Do-hyun ordered. "Iron Will, ready. Morning Star, ready. Wanderer, ready." One by one, the ships confirmed they were prepared. Do-hyun felt his heart beating fast in his chest. This was the moment they had worked toward for 6 months. The moment humanity would announce to the galaxy that they were not dead. "Target the orbital stations," he said. "Fire on my command." The Vec moonbase was the main supply center for the Vec Empire's outer territories. Hundreds of cargo ships passed through it every day, carrying food, weapons, and soldiers. It was protected by 12 orbital defense stations, each one bristling with cannons and missile launchers. The Vec commanders believed it was impossible to attack. They were wrong. "Activate Yuri's device," Do-hyun ordered. On every human ship, a small machine turned on. It sent out a wave of disrupted light that spread across space like a silent scream. The Vec defense stations went dark. Their sensors showed nothing but static. Their communication systems filled with noise. "Now!" Do-hyun shouted. "All ships fire!" The human fleet unleashed everything they had. Missiles streaked through space, leaving trails of fire behind them. Energy cannons blasted holes through metal and stone. The Vec stations exploded one by one, bright flowers of destruction blooming in the darkness. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, every orbital station had been destroyed. The Vec moonbase was defenseless. "Send the landing teams," Do-hyun ordered. General Lee Sun-woo led the ground assault personally. He had trained these soldiers himself, turned civilians into warriors through months of hard work and pain. Now they proved they were worth every drop of sweat. The Vec ground forces were confused and disorganized. Their communications were still disrupted, and they could not coordinate their defense. Sun-woo soldiers moved through the base like ghosts, capturing control rooms and weapon storage facilities. They took prisoners instead of killing everyone. That was important. Do-hyun had been very clear about that. "We are not them," he had said. "We do not murder helpless enemies. We are better than that." Some soldiers had argued against this. They wanted revenge. They wanted the Vec to suffer the way humanity had suffered. But Doin had stood firm. "Revenge will not bring back our families," he had told them. "It will not rebuild Earth. All it will do is turn us into the same monsters who attacked us. I will not allow that." 3 hours after the attack began, the Vec moonbase was under human control. Sun Wu stood in the main command center, looking at the captured Vec officers who knelt on the floor with their hands behind their heads. "Tell your emperor what happened here," Sun Wu said. "Tell Admiral Turan that the insects are coming for him." He let them go. They ran to their ships and fled into space, carrying the message of humanity's return. The Galactic Council received the news with shock and disbelief. Ambassador Vela of the Kryn species called an emergency meeting of all council members. They gathered in the great hall of the council homeworld, hundreds of alien representatives from dozens of species, all of them talking at once. "This is impossible," Admiral Turan said. He was a tall Vec with blue skin and forearms. His face showed confusion and anger. The humans were finished. They had nothing left. "How did they do this?" "Perhaps you were wrong about them," said a small alien with large eyes. His name was Drell, and he was the representative of the Morven species. The Morvens had always been friendly to humans. They had voted against the attack on Earth, but had been outnumbered. Wrong? Turan laughed harshly. "They are primitives. They have only been traveling in space for 200 years. We have been doing it for 10,000. And yet they just destroyed your moon base in 17 minutes. Drell pointed out. Turan's face turned a darker shade of blue. "A lucky strike. Nothing more. I will send a fleet to crush them." "How many ships did they have?" Ambassador Vela asked. "Our survivors reported 47 vessels." 47? Vela shook her head. "We have 8,000 warships in the Council fleet. This is not a threat. It is an annoyance." But Drell was not so sure. He had studied humans. He had visited Earth before the attack, walked through their cities, talked with their people. He had seen something in them that worried him. A strength that did not come from technology or numbers. Something deeper. "You should not underestimate them," he said quietly. But nobody listened. Over the next 2 months, the human fleet struck again and again. They attacked supply convoys, destroying food and weapons meant for Vec colonies. They raided communication stations, cutting off entire systems from the Council network. They freed human prisoners from Vec work camps, adding more soldiers to their growing army. Each attack was quick and precise. The humans appeared from nowhere, did their damage, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. They were ghosts, shadows, nightmares that kept Vec commanders awake at night. Kim Ji-woo worked constantly, improving their ships and weapons with each captured piece of Vec technology. She took apart enemy machines and rebuilt them better than before. Her shields became stronger. Her weapons became more powerful. Other species began to notice. "Where did they get this technology?" asked a Kryn scientist who examined the wreckage of a destroyed Vec ship. "This is not human design. But it is not Vec either. It is something new. It was something human. Beak. Yuri continued her research, finding more ways to exploit Vec weaknesses. She discovered that their armor was vulnerable to a specific type of radiation. She learned that their soldiers became confused in low-light environments. She shared this information with the fleet, and Sun Wu trained his soldiers to use it. The Vec started calling the humans the Dark Ones. They told stories of human soldiers who could see in complete darkness, who moved without making a sound, who killed without mercy. These stories were not completely true, but they spread fear through the Vec ranks. 1 month before Admiral Turan's celebration, Do-hyun led an attack on 5 Vex supply routes at the same time. 5 separate battles, perfectly coordinated, happening across thousands of light years. It was supposed to be impossible. No species had ever done anything like it before. But Do-hyun had something the Vec did not have. He had people who trusted each other completely. Captains who would follow his orders without question. Soldiers who fought not for money or power, but for their families. For their home. For revenge. The 5 attacks succeeded. The Vec lost 300 cargo ships, 2 cruisers, and a space station. More importantly, they lost control of their own territory. Colonies that had been loyal to the Empire began to doubt. Other species in the Council started to whisper. Maybe the humans will win, they said. Maybe we should stay out of this fight. On the Aegis, Do-hyun received reports from his captains and smiled. Everything was going according to plan. The Vec were confused and scared. The Council was divided. And Admiral Tehran was still planning his celebration, too proud to cancel it. 1 month, Do-hyun said to Hana as they stood together on the observation deck. 1 month until we end this. Can we really win? She asked. They still have thousands of ships. We have less than 200 now. Numbers are not everything, Do-hyun said. The Vec fight because they are ordered to. We fight because we have no choice. That makes us stronger. Hana leaned against him, and he put his arm around her. They watched the stars together, the same stars that had once seemed so beautiful and peaceful. Now they were a battlefield, a place of death and fire. I miss Earth, Hana said softly. Me too, Do-hyun replied. But we will build a new home. I promise. She looked up at him. Where? He thought for a moment. Then he smiled. Everywhere. You attacked Earth. Part 2. The gathering station Omega was old. It had been built 50 years ago as a rest stop for miners traveling between the outer planets. Now, it was the last safe place for humanity. Ships arrived every day, filling the empty docking bays with vessels of all sizes. Some were beautiful colony ships with shining white hulls. Others were ugly cargo haulers covered in rust and scars. But they all carried the same thing. Humans who had survived the end of their world. Captain Park. Do-hyun watched from the station's main window as another ship docked. It was the Morning Star, a small transport vessel that had been carrying teachers and students to a new colony. Now it carried orphans. Children whose parents had died on Earth. How many is that now? Asked Jo Minho, standing beside him. 212 ships, Do-hyun said. 4 million survivors. Minho shook his head. 4 million out of 12 billion. That is all that remains of humanity. It is enough, Do-hyun said. He turned away from the window. It has to be enough. The main hall of Station Omega was crowded. Representatives from every ship had gathered to hear Do-hyun speak. They sat on crates and boxes, stood against walls, and filled every corner of the room. Their faces showed exhaustion, grief, and anger. They had lost everything, and they wanted answers. Do-hyun stepped onto a small platform at the front of the hall. He looked at the crowd and felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. He was just a colony ship captain. He had never led an army. He had never fought in a war. But no one else had stepped forward, and someone had to speak. You all know why we are here, he began. 2 months ago, the Vec Empire attacked Earth without warning. They killed billions of innocent people. They destroyed our cities, our homes, our families. His voice grew harder, and the Galactic Council did nothing to stop them. They watched it happen. Some of them even helped. Angry shouts filled the hall. People cursed the Vec, cursed the Council, cursed the aliens who had pretended to be friends. Do-hyun raised his hand for silence. I know you are angry. I am angry too. But anger alone will not save us. We need a plan. We need to work together. And we need to be smart. A woman pushed through the crowd and climbed onto the platform beside him. She was small, with short black hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. Her name was Kim Ji-woo, and she was the best engineer humanity had ever produced. I have been looking at the Vec ships we captured after the attack, Ji-woo said. Their technology is advanced, but it is not magic. I can copy it. I can make it better. She held up a small device that glowed with blue light. This is their shield generator. It took me 3 weeks to understand how it works. It will take me 3 more weeks to build shields for our ships. The crowd murmured with interest. Shields. That was something they needed badly. Human ships were fast and strong, but they had weak defenses. In a fight with Vec warships, they would be destroyed quickly. Another person stepped forward. It was General Lee Sun-woo, a tall man with gray hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He had been the commander of Mars Colony's security forces before the attack. Now he was the highest-ranking military officer left alive. Shields are good, Sun-woo said. But we also need weapons. And soldiers. He turned to face the crowd. I'm asking for volunteers. Anyone who can hold a gun, anyone who is willing to fight, come see me after this meeting. I will train you. I will make you into warriors. And what about their weaknesses? Someone shouted from the crowd. Do the Vec have any weaknesses? A young woman near the back raised her hand. She looked nervous, like she was not used to speaking in front of large groups. Her name was Beek Yuri, and she was a scientist who had studied alien biology for 10 years. I might have something, Yuri said quietly. She walked to the front, holding a tablet computer. The Vec communicate using a specific frequency of light. If we can disrupt that frequency, we can blind their sensors and confuse their ships. I have been working on a device that can do this. Do-hyun looked at her with surprise. How long until it is ready? Maybe a month. Maybe less if I get help. You will have all the help you need, Do-hyun promised. The meeting continued for hours. People shared ideas, argued about strategies, and made plans for the future. It was messy and loud and sometimes frustrating. But for the first time since the attack, Do-hyun felt something like hope. After the meeting ended, he found Hana waiting for him in the corridor. She looked tired but determined. She had been working nonstop in the medical bay, treating injuries and helping people deal with their grief. How are you holding up? She asked. I don't know, Do-hyun admitted. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning. Like this is too big for me. These people are looking at me like I have all the answers. But I am just making it up as I go. Hana took his hand and squeezed it gently. That is what leaders do. They make it up as they go. The important thing is that you keep going. He smiled weakly. When did you become so wise? I married you, didn't I? That required a lot of wisdom. They laughed together, and for a moment, the weight on Do-hyun's shoulders felt a little lighter. The weeks that followed were filled with hard work. Ji-woo transformed the station's workshop into a factory. She worked 18 hours a day, teaching others how to build shields and weapons. Her hands were always burned and cut, but she never complained. Sun-woo drilled his volunteers until they collapsed from exhaustion. Farmers became soldiers. Teachers became fighters. Even children learned how to load weapons and treat wounds. Nobody was too young or too old to help. Yuri locked herself in a laboratory with a team of scientists. They tested her device again and again until it worked perfectly. The Vec would not see them coming, and throughout the station, people talked. They shared memories of Earth. They cried together and laughed together. They told stories about the homes they had lost and the people they would never see again. But they also talked about the future, about revenge, about showing the galaxy that humanity was not finished. One night, Do-yoon received a message that made him stop breathing. It was from a spy, a human who had been living on a Vec world when the attack happened. The message was short but important. The Council thinks you are finished. They are not sending ships to find you. They believe you will die on your own. Admiral Taran of the Vec said humans are like insects, annoying but harmless. He's planning a celebration to honor his victory over Earth. It will be held on Vec Prime in 6 months. Do-hyun read the message 3 times. Then he smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had just found his target. They think we are insects, he said to himself. They think we will die quietly in the dark. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the fleet of human ships that now filled the station's bays. Mining ships had been turned into warships. Cargo haulers had been armed with missiles. Colony vessels had become troop carriers. They have no idea what is coming. He called a meeting of his top officers and shared the message. The room went quiet as everyone understood what it meant. We have 6 months, Do-yoon said. 6 months to get ready. 6 months to build our fleet and train our soldiers. And then he looked at each person in the room. Then we show the Vec what insects can do when they are angry. General Sunwoo nodded slowly. What is your plan, Captain? Do-hyun smiled again. This time, his eyes were cold and hard like ice. We are going to crash Admiral Taran's party. You attacked Earth. Part 1. The Strike. Stars had always been beautiful from the observation deck of the Aegis. Captain Park Do-hyun stood alone, watching the distant lights that humans had dreamed about for thousands of years. His coffee had gone cold in his hands, but he did not notice. Something felt wrong tonight. He could not explain it, but his chest felt heavy, like a storm was coming. The Aegis was a colony ship, one of the largest humanity had ever built. It carried 50,000 people toward a new home on a planet called Haven 7. They had left Earth 6 months ago, and they still had 2 years of travel ahead. Do-hyun had made this journey 3 times before. He knew every sound the ship made, every vibration in the metal floors. Tonight, everything seemed too quiet. His communicator beeped. It was his wife, Yoon Hana, calling from the medical bay where she worked as the head doctor. Are you coming to bed? She asked. Her voice was soft and tired. Soon, Do-hyun said. I just need a few more minutes. You always say that. He could hear her smile through the words. Don't stay up too late, old man. He laughed quietly. At 45, he was not old, but Hana loved to tease him. They had been married for 20 years. She knew him better than anyone. She knew when something was bothering him, even when he did not say it. I love you, he said. I love you too. Now come to bed. The call ended, and Do-hyun turned back to the stars. He was about to leave when the emergency alarm screamed through the ship. Red lights flashed everywhere. His coffee cup fell from his hands and shattered on the floor. He ran to the bridge. Officers were shouting, pulling up screens and data that made no sense. His first officer, a young man named Cho Min-ho, grabbed his arm. Captain, we received a transmission from Earth Command. It's marked urgent. Priority 1. Play it, Do-hyun ordered. The main screen flickered and a face appeared. It was Admiral Kan Ji-yeon, the highest commander in Earth's defense forces. Her face was covered in blood and dust. Behind her, Do-hyun could see fire and smoke. Buildings were falling. People were screaming. This message goes to all human vessels, Admiral Kang said. Her voice was shaking but strong. Earth has been attacked. I repeat, Earth has been attacked. The Galactic Council's military forces, led by the Vec Empire, began orbital bombardment at 0600 hours. Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, Beijing, Mumbai. She paused to cough. Blood came from her mouth. 12 major cities have been destroyed. Billions are dead. Earth's defense fleet has been eliminated. The bridge went completely silent. Do-hyun felt like the floor had disappeared under his feet. We don't know why they attacked, Admiral Kang continued. We had peace treaties. We traded with them. We thought they were our friends. She laughed bitterly, and tears ran down her face. We were wrong. To any human ships receiving this message, do not return to Earth. I repeat, do not return. Survive. Remember us. And one day, her eyes hardened like steel. Make them pay. The transmission ended. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the ship's engines. Do-hyun stared at the blank screen, his mind trying to understand what he had just heard. Earth, gone. Billions dead. His mother lived in Seoul. His brother's family was in Bizen. His childhood home, his school, the small restaurant where he had proposed to Hannah Olivet, was ash now. Captain? Minho's voice was barely a whisper. What do we do? Do-hyun did not answer. He could not. His legs felt weak, and he grabbed the railing to stay standing. This had to be a mistake. A bad dream. Some kind of terrible joke. The Vec had been humanity's first alien contact. They had welcomed humans into the galactic community. They had helped build Earth's first interstellar ships. Why would they do this? The door to the bridge opened and Hannah ran in. She had heard the alarm. She had heard the message. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red from crying. Do-hyun, she said, her voice breaking. My parents were in Bizen. My sister's children. He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. She cried against his chest, and he felt his own tears fall. Around them, the bridge crew was falling apart. Some officers were crying. Others were shouting in anger, punching walls and throwing things. One young woman had collapsed on the floor, screaming for her family, but Do-hyun knew he could not break. Not yet. 50,000 people depended on him. They needed a captain, not a grieving man. He took a deep breath and gently pushed Hannah back. I'm sorry, he said to her. I'm so sorry. But I need you to go to the medical bay. People will need you. They will need someone strong. She wiped her tears and nodded. She understood. She had always understood. That was why he loved her. After she left, Do-hyun turned to face his crew. His voice was rough when he spoke, but it was steady. Listen to me, he said. All of you. I know you are hurt. I know you are scared. I am too. But we cannot fall apart. Not now. He walked to the main console and began typing commands. Minho, contact every human ship you can find. Colony vessels, cargo ships, mining operations, everyone. I want to know how many of us survived. Yes, Captain. And find out everything you can about the attack. Who ordered it? Why it happened? How many of our people are left? Minho hesitated. Captain, Admiral Kang said not to go back. She said to survive. Don stopped typing. He turned to look at Minto, and his eyes were filled with something dark and cold. We will survive, he said quietly. But surviving is not enough. They killed our families. They burned our home. They think we are weak. They think we will run and hide like frightened animals. He stood straight and looked at every person on the bridge. They are wrong. Over the next few hours, reports came in from across the galaxy. Human ships sent messages of grief and rage. The Wanderer near Jupiter. The Hope in the outer colonies. The Iron Will at a mining station near Alpha Centauri. 47 ships in total. 3 million humans scattered across the stars. It was not much. Against the Galactic Council's thousands of warships and trillions of soldiers, it was almost nothing, but it was enough. Do-hyun looked at the list of ships and felt something new growing in his chest. It was not grief anymore. It was not fear. It was anger hot, pure, and powerful. Send a message to every ship, he ordered. Tell them Captain Park Do-yoon of the Aegis is calling for a gathering. Tell them we will meet at Station Omega in 3 weeks. Tell them, he paused and let out a slow breath. Tell them we are going to war. The message went out across the stars, and humanity, broken but not destroyed, began to answer.